Let's go back again and look at how some of these systems, practices, philosophies, and methodologies came to be. As we talked about at the beginning of this module, in the old days, maybe as recent as yesterday, developers, also known as programmers, software engineers, and coders, sat in their own private or semi-private spaces, working on their own, talking to their teammates infrequently. Perhaps you've heard of mushroom management. It goes, keep them in the dark and feed them fertilizer. When they get big enough, can them. While this is funny, it's all too close to reality. Many managers believe in a divide and conquer strategy, or in mushroom management, handing out just enough information to keep their staffs working. The sad thing is that this is highly ineffective. All of those folks we just talked about in the last section, Beck and Schwaber and Martin and Fowler and Coburn and so forth, all of them looked at this, mostly from being in these situations themselves, and came up with various ways to try to improve not just the lot of the developers, but also the quality of what they produced and the speed and cost to deliver it. What some of them realized was that there was a problem with isolation and infrequent communication. If I have to leave what I'm doing, find someone else, have a conversation, walk back to my workspace, remember what we talked about and put it into play, I've had to context switch 2 or 3 times, lost time, and communicated ineffectively. That's just not an ideal way to work. So these guys asked, what if and how, and experimented. They looked at where and how they sat, what their working circumstances were like, how their teams communicated internally and externally, how they managed their requirements and workflow, and more. One of the most important outcomes of the C3 project at Chrysler, where Kent Beck and Ron Jeffries pioneered the practices that became extreme programming, or XP, was the idea of a co-located team and a team room. Consider our previous example, where I have to get up, walk around, find someone to answer a question, go back to my office or cubicle, remember what they said. Well, there's a lot of time and knowledge lost, and productivity is not very high. What if, when I wanted to ask someone a question, they were right there in the room with me? What if I could just ask, immediately use the answer, ask clarifying questions, all without leaving my workspace? The answer is that productivity goes up, the quality of the work goes up, and the time it takes goes down. Now, let's look at another part of this. In the old days, yes, we're still talking about times as recent as yesterday, code reviews were a separate process conducted with some degree of formality. They usually took place after I'd written and tested my code, when I thought I was done, and when I thought I was ready to move on. Because we had to schedule and arrange and plan the time, code reviews frequently took place some significant time after I thought I was done. Changes were resisted, and feedback was always taken as criticism. What if code reviews were happening in real time? What if my reviewer was actually sitting right next to me, talking to me about my code, the decisions I'm making, and so on, as I'm writing my code? What if we changed roles periodically? This is pair programming and is another outcome from the C3 project and a core practice in XP. All of these approaches, call them philosophies, methodologies, or practices, comprise what we call Agile. Agile is not a single thing. Agile is a manifesto for Agile software development. Agile is a set of things. Agile is a mindset, a way of thinking, and a way of approaching work. From feature-driven design to Scrum to XP and all the rest, it's about the commitment to deliver more business value in the same or less time for the same or less cost. When you read about these different schools of thought, you'll see that they all overlap in these areas. Of course, there are differences, and it's important to understand those differences as much as it's important to understand the commonalities. In this graphic, you can see some of each. For instance, team communication is common to many Agile methodologies, as are co-location, collaboration, and information radiators. While some focus on some of these more than others, it's safe to say that they are common themes or focuses. On the other hand, we can see that there are some significant differences. Lean focuses on waste, cycle time, flow, and urgency. While these are not specifically absent from others, they are not areas of focus. As you can see, Scrum has more of a focus on management visibility than others, as Scrum has at its core the management of the process. Both Scrum and XP share a focus on project management, while XP has a specific focus on developer practices, which is lacking in Scrum. This graphic represents a modest set of ideas. There are many more, of course. What is important to learn from this is that each approach may be incomplete by itself, and it's up to each organization and project team to choose the practices and methodologies that work best for them. That is, there is not one right way, and there is no Agile in a box. There are different areas of focus, different rationales for choosing them, and it's up to each of us to figure out how to make the different parts and philosophies and methodologies work for us. We've talked about some of the authors of the Agile Manifesto and touched on Lean. This slide contains a number of URLs for the blogs or websites of some of the more influential thinkers and doers in the Agile community. The list is by no means comprehensive. Identifying all the individuals who have had or continue to have a significant impact on this community is a challenging task indeed. There are folks who continue to explore new areas, new ideas, new practices, and to push the boundaries of what is known. While the Agile Manifesto is less than 10 years old, the ideas that are at the heart of the Agile community have been developing for decades and continue to develop. We highly recommend that you explore some of the websites and blogs listed here. Read about the research and the practice that is going on today. Get a sense of who is doing what and why. Gather information to help you decide what is most effective for you and your team or organization. Agile is evolving, growing, and making a difference in the community of practice in software development. Thank you for joining us for the Origins of Agile Software Development, a module in Agile Fundamentals. The next module in the series is the Agile Core, in which we'll explore some of the practices and methodologies that make Agile what it is. Until the next time, we wish you well.